This man, the general from the US, confirmed that with what is happening in Nigeria today, that they know that Boko Haram, Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, all of them have joined forces together in Nigeria to overrun Nigeria, and then after that, that they are going to attack the United States and the West. That is the reason why you see Nigeria a global threat, and why it must be dissolved this year, 2023, for lasting peace.
In the long term, they want to establish caliphate, and they are willing. We know they have not the will to attack the United States in the West.
You said that they will establish a caliphate. Establish this caliphate, that they know, the Americans know, that what is going on in Nigeria, that they are willing to attack the United States and attack the West. And that's exactly what they are going to do. So by the time they lay their hand on our resources, by the time they are in control and in charge of our resources, they will be shipping and exporting terrorists to America and to Europe. And you will be seeing terrorist attack everywhere. That is the idea, that is the plan. And exactly what is going on today.
Objectives and a little bit different view. And so that tends to bring Islamic State and Al-Qaeda into conflict. Here, they're able to overcome and a common purpose. I think long term, and we don't know when this will happen, but long term they want to establish themselves, they want to establish a caliphate, and they are willing, we know they have not only the desire, but the will to attack the United States and the West. And so if we're unable to disrupt their efforts, you give them you give them the opportunity to develop their external operations, to develop their capabilities, and then you combine that with what I believe they're trying to do is find a source of reliable income that they can establish that through either kidnap or ransom, what they're doing now. They can get access to the gold mines that are throughout.
Are you hearing that? That what the terrorists were doing is to find source of income. To find source of income. They can lay their hand on gold. They can do kidnapping for ransom like Gumi. The Gumi have been supporting them to do kidnapping for ransom so that they will sustain the war, including the one the government is giving them. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? That they want to go into this criminality, into this particular criminality by mining, like you know in Sambisa Forest they say there is what we call Californium. Californium, 1 gram of it will $7 million. So you see how Boko Haram has sustained the war. Californium is in Sambisa Forest. Have you not heard about it? So everything this man said here, he thought it is going to happen after 2023, after 2030. He was thinking that this is going to happen after 2030. So I am here this evening to inform them it is happening already. There is nothing like 2030. It is happening already, and we must not allow Nigeria to exist in 2023. Never. I want everybody to listen. It is a fight for survival. Fight for survival.
What I believe they're trying to do is find a source of reliable income that they can establish that through ransom, what they're doing now, access to the gold mines that are throughout the region, and then they can start accessing the smuggling networks that run north to south from the Gulf of Guinea up to the Mediterranean that have been there for centuries. And if they can start to co-opt those and use that for a reliable source of income, you've got the ingredients for something that could be quite bad. We have to watch this. We don't know. It's not there yet. There's not a direct threat to right now, the West, but it's very destabilizing to the region. And I believe that if it's left unchecked, it could very easily develop into a greater threat and a greater threat to the West and the United States.
You hear that? That if they allow Nigeria, of course not Nigeria, if they allow these terrorists to continue, if they are going to be a great threat to the West and to the United States. So what we are doing is actually helping them because they don't have solution to it. The only solution is the disintegration of Nigeria, which will disintegrate the interest of these particular terrorists that they will not pose threat to the West and America.
The West, but it's very destabilizing to the region. And I believe that if it's left unchecked, it could very easily develop into a greater threat and a greater.
It has developed into a greater threat. He said it is not checked. It can develop into a threat. It has actually developed into a greater threat. That is what I mean.
Destabilizes the region. And I believe that if it's left unchecked, it could very easily develop into a greater threat and a greater threat to the West and the United States.
Mike, after the fall of Kabul, you were on this program and you correctly forecast that the Taliban knew where al-Qaeda's leader was inside Afghanistan.
Right.
So I'm wondering what your thought is about where the emerging terror threat is now.
So one of the major affiliates of al-Qaeda, it's called al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent. The leader of that group, the deputy of that group, and the top recruiter of that group are today in Afghanistan. So al-Qaeda is a problem that needs to be watched in Afghanistan. The bigger problem in Afghanistan at the moment is ISIS. And ISIS, almost weekly attacks inside Afghanistan. The biggest worry is that they are increasingly recruiting from neighboring countries. And those individuals, particularly Tajikistan, those individuals are coming in where they're getting training from ISIS. And the concern is that they might leave Afghanistan, go back to their home countries, and conduct attacks against Western interests.
You see, they may go back to their home countries and conduct attack against Western interests. That is the only solution to this from the African perspective or the African context is that you must divide Nigeria. I'm not saying we should divide. We are pulling out of Nigeria, not even dividing.
Embassies. The bigger terrorism problem is actually in Africa.
You see, the bigger problem is actually in Africa. Where do you have the bigger problem of terrorists today in Nigeria? Is there any other country in Africa that you have actually a bigger terrorist threat? It's in Nigeria. I want you to listen. He mentioned Afghanistan. Afghanistan was not even a bigger one. Afghanistan that has almost the best military, U.S. military hardware, military equipment, fighter jet, helicopter. This man said Afghanistan is not even a threat. The bigger threat is in Africa. Where will you say presently? Which African country presently have the most highest terrorists? Where? It's Nigeria. So what we are saying now is that I want you all to listen to this.
Getting training from ISIS, and the concern is that they might leave Afghanistan, go back to their home countries, and conduct attacks against Western interests. Think embassies. The bigger terrorism problem is actually in Africa, all the way from Somalia, all the way to West Africa.
To West Africa, he refused to mention Nigeria. I don't know, is there any other West African country that will have terrorists like you have terrorists now that is, everybody knows. He will refuse to mention Nigeria. This is the problem of this city. Because some of them are getting paid. They maybe not directly, but they benefit from whatever interest they protect. They benefit from Nigeria. The fluorization and Islamization of Nigeria continues. When we talk, they tell you to come to Nigeria. This man talked and they assassinated him. He talked and they killed him. So whenever you want to talk, they will tell you to come to Nigeria and talk, because that is their killing ground. And that is why some of us who have found ourselves in so many places in exile can fight this particular terrorist government from exile. We are going to fight our freedom from exile. And we are going to get this freedom from exile. When we started this whole thing, we told the people that we will bring Biafra from diaspora. Some people did not know what we saw. You didn't know what we have seen then. When we were telling you that Biafra, we are going to bring it from diaspora, you don't know. It is happening today. We are going to fight Nigeria from afar, and we are defeating them already.
Colonel Yohana Madaki, they went to the police to report what was going on and to seek for help. And you will not believe it. The police detained them. Yes.
Are you hearing that? The police detained both of them. The question you should be asking yourself is, police detained a colonel police detain a military man who go to report what the Fulani terrorists are doing to their people. Police detain them. Do you think if that police is an Igbo man, the police will detain them? The answer is no. Do you think if the police is a Yoruba man, the police will detain them? The answer is no. The police would have respected the law and listened to them instead of detaining them. But because Fulani have taken over the police, so they gave order to detain them. Because the people that want to file report against is in charge of the police. They are also in charge of the military. The same Southern Kaduna you are seeing now, the GOC of Enugu 82 Division was in charge of this particular Southern Kaduna where this killing was going on. So who do you report to? Nobody. You have to report to yourself. Take charge of the security of your land because Fulani terrorists have taken charge of the police, the army, the executive, the judiciary, the National Assembly, and everything has been taken over by the Fulani terrorists. You don't have any choice. Don't need to go to them. That is what they gave for people. That is what gave birth to the Eastern Security Network. And we defend, we are going to follow them.
We are here live
till the last day Nigeria, Biafra will stay in Nigeria. Today, the same thing this man is saying now is happening in the southeast, where the same person who was the GOC of the 2 division was in charge of Southern Kaduna, and he has now brought the same people to southeast, and the killing is going on. They now begin to write against Amanepa because Amanepa said Biafra must come this year. Do you understand it? Because they follow who is protecting them. First, when Buhari entered as Asoro, he brought all of them from all other African countries. Now, when Buhari begin to appoint other leaders of the Fulani terrorists, then any place they appoint them, this or that one will drag them there. So now they have dragged them into Southeast because of the GOC of 18 Division, who came to give shelter to the massacre in Ehamufu. He did not only give shelter, he ordered the military to burn houses, and they burned about 100. Over 100 houses were burned in Ehamufu by military, not the Fulani, by military. Ask yourself, who are these people protecting? Who are these military working for? Whose interests are the military protecting? Is it the interest of the people, or interest of the government, or interest of the Fulanis? Because the interest of the people is the government. So definitely, it cannot be the interest of the people. So whose interest? Interest of Islamic State. Because the people that came to Ehamufu to kill were actually, their main motive is to kill and evict the people from Ehamufu. So they couldn't do it. Military have to come and do it by themselves. Do you see it? Do you hear that people that came to report about the Fulani invasion was detained by police? Who is the Fulani? Oh my goodness. This is happening in Biafra land today. And they thought that, where is this coming from? This cannot happen in Nigeria. It happened in Southern Kaduna, but they didn't pay attention because it was not coming from them. When it was happening in Southern Kaduna, everybody was deaf. Nobody was hearing it. Only thing we see on social media is that the other day they have lied 100 bodies and they are giving the mass burial. And everybody is shouting, oh my God, Southern Kaduna, what did these people do? The same thing is now happening, and they are now behaving as if they were not in Nigeria before when it was happening in Southern Kaduna. They are now behaving that, oh, such thing is arrow, is abomination. It has never happened before. Where we are there, when this particular thing happened in the Southeast, it happened in Southern Kaduna. And when they sent this particular GOC to some places, they rejected it. I was told that the Duduwa, Yoruba people rejected it, and then forwarded him to the Southeast. So I want everybody to watch.
What your thought is about where the emerging terror threat is now?
So one of the major affiliates of Al-Qaeda, it's called Al-Qaeda in the Indian subcontinent. The leader of that group, the deputy of that group, and the top recruiter of that group are today in Afghanistan. So Al-Qaeda is a problem that needs to be watched in Afghanistan. The bigger problem in Afghanistan at the moment is ISIS. And ISIS almost weekly attacks inside Afghanistan. The biggest worry is that they are increasingly recruiting from neighboring countries. And those individuals, particularly Tajikistan, those individuals are coming in where they're getting training from ISIS. And the concern is that they might leave Afghanistan, go back to their home countries, and conduct attacks against Western interests. Think embassies. The bigger terrorism problem is actually in Africa, all the way from Somalia all the way up to West Africa, where you've got both Al-Qaeda affiliates and you've got ISIS affiliates. They have controlled huge swaths of territory. They've conducted primarily local attacks so far, but at some point, Western embassies in both Africa and possibly in Europe could become targets. And if we're going to make a prediction for 2023, I'd say we're going to see a terrorist attack against a Western interest somewhere in the world.
Fellow Nigeria, in search of excellence for Africa, my mission remains to create awareness, advance practical solutions, and transform mindsets via case studies. Together, let's midwife deliverance for our race, country, and continent. Please share this video. I am Dr. Israel Noyana Davidson. Thank you. In 2001, US-led forces overthrew a Taliban-led Afghan government following the 9/11 attacks led by the Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. For the next 20 years, the US and allies enforced democratic ideals, built up Afghan security forces, and provided operational air cover. The Taliban continued to attack. Now, eventually, under President Trump, the US promised to pull out if Taliban agreed to stop attacks and hosting terrorist groups. Today, the Taliban militants have declared Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan and overrun most of the country at lightning speed with little or no resistance from the 300,000 US trained and heavily equipped Afghan forces. U.S. General
Mike,
could not
after the fall
believe.
of Kabul, you were on this program and you correctly forecast that the Taliban knew where Al-Qaeda's leader was inside Afghanistan.
Right.
So I'm wondering what your thought is about where the emerging terror threat is now.
Nice. A situation, some suggest, currently exists in Nigeria too. So Afghanistan was simply handed over to the mullahs to govern, based on their shared jihadist ideological leaning. The south and middle belt of Nigeria should wake up with urgency. The Afghan situation is cooking fast in Nigeria today. Afghanistan is #1 on global terrorism
West Africa,
list.
where you've
Nigeria
got
is
both Al-Qaeda affiliates and you've got ISIS affiliates. They have controlled huge swaths of territory. They've conducted primarily local attacks so far, but at some point, Western embassies against Western interests. Think embassies. The bigger terrorism problem is actually in Africa, all the way from Somalia all the way to West Africa, where you've got both Al-Qaeda affiliates and you've got ISIS affiliates. They have controlled huge swaths of territory. They've conducted primarily local attacks so far, but at some point, Western embassies, Western military bases in both Africa and possibly in Europe could become targets. And if we're going to make a prediction for 2023, I'd say we're going to see a terrorist attack against a Western interest somewhere in the world.
So now, when you dissolve Nigeria, what this general predicted that is going to happen many years ago, of course, it's already happening. So when you dissolve Nigeria, you are actually saving the attack against America. When you dissolve Nigeria, you are actually saving an attack against the West. When you dissolve Nigeria, you are also saving the life of African people. You are also saving the life of Biafrans. So you see, what we are fighting for is not the presidency of Nigeria. It's not to resource control. We are fighting for survival. We are fighting to safeguard our unborn children and unborn generation. This is what many people don't understand. That with what is going on today, we have gone over beyond those things of resource build Nigeria better, because we are now fighting for survival. When you are alive, you can do something. So that is the reason why we are going to put our life on line, to make sure that we do not validate Nigeria in Biafra territory this year. So I want you people to understand that with this analysis and what you are going to watch again, you understand that Nigeria has become a global threat, and this is manifesting every day by day.
This is the car of the leader. It has been destroyed. Yes, it has been destroyed. We will continue to do what we're supposed to do. And that is it. It is going on. Thank you.